And welcome back to the My Tehillim Time Jewish Women's Virtual Festival. We are in day 20, week number 7. We've been going strong. For those of you that are joining for the first time, we've been going strong since August 22nd, and we're going to continue on all the way through October 17th, where we have our Rachel Imeinu event in conjunction with the Shabbat Project. It's going to be a fantastic 2-hour special live streaming from the Kever of Rachel. I'm going to be giving you more details at the end of this program. And for those of you that have signed up for Abraham's Legacy, you'll have already received an email with additional information. My name is Orly Wab. I'm the founder of Abraham's Legacy, and I'm so excited to be here yet again for another spectacular night, seeing so many of you amazing women that are joining night and after night after night. For those of you that are coming for the first time, welcome. We're so excited that you've joined us. And don't worry, if you've missed any of the talks and you don't know how you can find out how you can watch them, it's really easy. All you need to do is go to the Abraham's Legacy YouTube channel, and there you'll be able to see all of the talks in a playlist called My Tehillim Time. So feel free to check that out. If you're here because someone forwarded you an email and you want to be part of the raffles that are happening every single night, all you need to do is also go to abrahamslegacy.com/sign up. There you'll be able to see the entire agenda of speakers that are coming up. The October 17th event, the Shabbat Project event for Rachel Imeinu, will also be listed there over the next few days. And when you register, then you'll automatically be entered into every night's raffle going all the way through October 17th. Before I introduce this evening's speaker, just a couple of thank yous that I want to make sure that we give out. First and foremost, I want to thank my partner in this incredible event. I want to thank Naomi Jerno from Naomi's Uplifting Events. I love you, Naomi. So thank you so much for the heart, for your effort that you put in day after day. I'm so grateful that I had a chance to get to know you, even though we haven't met yet in real life. We will. Of course, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of our incredible speakers. And above all, I want to thank HASHEM for giving me the opportunity to be able to do this day in and day out. I love you, HASHEM. I always say, like I say, he's the CEO. I just happen to work for him. So we all have to do our job in whichever way that we can. And so before I'm going to introduce our speaker, for those of you that are joining for the first time, what is the program for this evening? After I introduce our speaker, she'll be then wowing us with her fantastic words for about 20 minutes. Right after that, don't go anywhere. We're going to be doing a Tehillim read all together through the Abraham's Legacy Tehillim app, which you'll have the opportunity to download. It's for iOS, for Android. It's completely free. It's a L'Shem Shemaim project in Hebrew, English, Spanish, and French. If you don't have a mobile device, or you don't have a smartphone, don't worry. You can grab a book of Tehillim and open it up and just read with us, or just open your heart and talk to HASHEM during those 6 minutes. This app was created in memory of my grandfather. And the reason I bring this up again tonight, Avraham ben Polin, is that today is a day of his yortzeit. And so all of this entire program, also on top of that, the app itself is all in his zechut. And so I'm going to ask that tonight, as we're going to be reading Tehillim for the 6-minute period, that we all keep Avraham ben Polin in our minds, Lilui Nishmato. In addition, right after the Tehillim read, still don't go anywhere. You'll have the opportunity to ask the Rabbanit any questions you have. And of course, we end off with our exciting raffle, where we'll be raffling off our 100% pure Copper Netillah cup. So make sure you stay tuned, and now I'll be announcing the speaker for the next day. Today's spectacular speaker, and I'm very excited to have her on with us, is Rabbanit Yael Leibowitz. Now, the Rabbanit has her master's degree in Judaic studies from Columbia University, and prior to making Aliyah, she taught Tanakh at the Upper School of Ramaz, and then went on to join the Judaic Studies faculty at Yeshiva University's Stern College for Women. She's taught continuing education courses at Der Shua Institute for Jewish Education and served as a resident scholar at the Jewish Center of Manhattan. She's currently teaching at Matan Women's Institute for Torah Learning and Pardes Institute as she continues her studies at Bar Ilan. She is a complete powerhouse, and I'm very excited. She's going to be speaking to us tonight about Tehillim and navigating the complexity of our emotions. So without further ado, I give you Rabbanit Yael Leibowitz.
Thank you so much, Orly. Okay, so I have to say, as you were just speaking a minute ago, I got the chills, not only because this app is literally everything I'm going to be speaking about tonight, but I think my early connection to Tehillim really came from my grandfather, and his name was actually Abraham. So as you were speaking, there was something really just fantastic about that. I will say my grandfather, I remember as a child, I wasn't even going to use this as my intro, but here you go. I remember as a child, whenever I would walk in, my grandfather had left before the Holocaust and lost his entire family. He came to America, he lost his entire family, and he was an older man, even when he wasn't probably chronologically that old. And I remember as a child, anytime I came to his house, he was sitting in his chair saying Tehillim. That was that's my memory of him. And in fact, he actually passed away. He had a heart attack in the middle of saying Tehillim. My grandmother turned around, the Tehillim dropped, she turned around. And so Tehillim has been something that has been a very emotional, whenever I say Tehillim, it's something that I find really that, like you were saying, connects us in a way that I think is so much deeper, sometimes even than regular tefillot. And what I wanted to try to do just, in the couple of minutes that we have is to try to look at maybe why that is and why Tehillim, of all the different tefillot and of all the liturgies that our religion and our tradition is so packed with, why is it that Tehillim in particular speaks to us, I think, on this really visceral level. So actually, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to put Tehillim on the side for a second, because I think the more we understand about the world around us, the more we can appreciate Torah. That's always the truth, right? So in the 70s and 80s, there was this new interdisciplinary field that was known as cognitive linguistics. And cognitive linguistics, essentially, it sounds really fancy, but essentially what it did is it combined research from biology and neurophysiology and computer science and anthropology. And what the field attempted to do was really provide sort of a framework or methodological tools, you might say, that could be used to identify and to really to sort of study empirically the relationship between language and the mind, right? So what happens between what goes on up here and what comes out here? And, it's a fascinating field in its own right. You guys should definitely read up on it. But one of the most fascinating, I think, phenomena, and something that I really think helps us understand Tehillim on a whole nother level, is what cognitive linguists identified as our reliance on metaphor in language. Right? We don't think about it a lot. It's going to annoy you because once I go through this in the next 5 minutes, you're going to hear metaphor everywhere. You're going to see it everywhere, and you're going to realize suddenly, actually, that human beings actually can't speak about the human experience without using metaphor, which is something really, really fascinating, because ultimately, human beings, right, what we're sort of always existing between is the concrete and the abstract, right? So we have concrete experiences, but oftentimes what we want to talk about are those abstract things, or those things in life that are elusive, right? Things like time, things like emotions, things like religious experience. And so what we search for and what we do unconsciously really is we utilize what it's called mapping, right? Where we utilize the concrete almost as a mashal, almost as a metaphor, and map it onto the abstract experience. So we have what cognitive linguists call a source, which is the concrete, and a target experience when we want to talk about things. So if you'll bear with me for 30 seconds, just because it's too cool not to show you, I'm going to show you a couple of examples. I'm not going to go through them because I know we don't have a lot of time. But just so you get a sense, a tiny bit of what I'm talking about here. I'm going to jump up, to the top, right? So here, these are phrases, idioms that we use all the time, right? We'll say, you're wasting my time, right? Or how do you spend your time these days? You need to budget your time. And if you think about it, time is abstract. We have no idea what time is. So as human beings, we use the metaphor, the experience of money, concrete money that we experience coming and going, and we map it onto this elusive concept of time. Right? We do the same thing when we're talking about theories, right? We say, what's the foundation of your theory? Or they exploded his latest theory. If we want to talk about ideas, what's an idea? An idea, there's nothing concrete. An idea is an idea. It's something that happens in our minds, something we try to communicate to people, right? So if we use the metaphor of a plant, something that has to be planted, something that comes to fruition, something that can bud slowly at its own time, right? Someone has a fertile imagination. So all of a sudden we're able to sort of create pictures in people's minds of that abstract experience that we're trying to have, right? We could say, you make my blood boil, right? She gets all steamed up. We draw from the physiological reactions in our body to talk about emotions, right? That's ultimately what metaphor is really all about. And the reason that I'm talking about metaphor is because I think that once we begin to understand that metaphor is really the building block of language, right? And that the metaphors we use, we choose so carefully to articulate things. I always love the example. I say, you could talk to one couple and they could say, we just fell in love, right? As if, right, the experience of physically falling, they didn't have control over it. They fell in love, there was no control, they just ended up, versus an older couple that might say, we grew in love. Right? So they're both talking about the abstract experience of love, but they're using two completely different concrete metaphors. One couple will talk about falling and one couple will talk about growing. And so the metaphors that we choose, this building block of language, I really believe is partially, right, one of the reasons that Tehillim is so powerful. And if you think about it, right, metaphor exists throughout Tanakh, but if you think about it, majority of Tanakh is Hashem speaking to us, Hashem telling us. It's a they're prescriptive books. Hashem tells us what he expects of humanity, of humankind. And Tehillim, fascinatingly enough, is a sefer where humanity expresses, the mishorer, right, representing, experiences life. And it's almost, rather than being prescriptive, right, Hashem telling us how to live, what the human experience should look like, it's descriptive. It describes what the human experience actually is, right, in all of its pain and all of its joy, and we're going to see a few examples. And so the Mishorer and the authors of the Mizmorim of Tehillim draw from all of those various experiences, and in order to communicate them, utilize and rely heavily on metaphor. So what I wanted to do, really just a couple of minutes, just to give you the tiniest taste of this concept, but I think that once I give you an example of it, you'll be able to sort of run with it on your own and see it in almost every Mizmor. I wanted to choose one of the sort of many concrete physical experiences, right, that the Mishorer uses to depict that experience and show how powerful his words are as a result. So if we think about it, do you guys still see my screen up there? Yeah, okay, so sorry about that. I'm just going to move it over so I could, okay. So one of the things that's very, very cool also, and we're gonna see, is that the Mishorer brilliantly uses, among the many other metaphors that he uses the metaphor. Can you see the sources, or did they get too tiny? You see them? Okay. He uses the metaphor of water. Okay. And what's interesting is that he's able to use the metaphor of water, but in so many, the sort of that, what we talked about, that concrete source, but to map it onto so many targets. And so I'm going to give you just, again, a few examples just to sort of, here you go. I'll use a metaphor to whet your palate, right? And hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll be able to start looking for it in your own reading and your own saying of Tehillim. And so, for example, if we look at Parak Samach Tet, right, in verse Psalm 69, so there it's saying, Lamanatseach al Shoshanim LeDavid, Hoshi'eni Elokim ki ba'u mayim ad nafesh. Right here, the Mishorer is talking about water. Now, water is the source of life. Water could be something that sustains us. Water, particularly in Israel, where the Mishorer is writing from, you could have flash floods, you could have desiccation, you could have all sorts of horrible experiences with water if there's too much, if there's too little. In this particular Mizmor, the author, the Mishorer, is saying, Hoshieni Elokim ki ba'u mayim ad nafesh. The water has right, it's choking me. Tavati bivein mitzula ve'ein ma'amad. The Mishorer is crying, and he's using water really as a metaphor to talk about how surrounded he feels by enemies, how alone he feels that experience, how he feels as if he's sinking into the deep waters and he can't keep his head above the water, and he's begging God, right, from allowing him to go under. Okay, now again, the water is a metaphor. The Mishorer, David HaMelech, was never at the risk of drowning, but he's using the experience of drowning in the hate that surrounds him to talk about that abstract feeling of fear and terror. Okay. A little bit further down, though, what's fascinating is that he almost draws from that experience of drowning, but here articulates it in a form of praise. So in Parak Kuf Chaf Dalet, in Pasuk Dalet, for example, it says, Azai hamayim shtafunu nachla avar al nafshenu, right? Had Hashem not, he's talking about that experience of almost dying. The water was already washing over him, and then it's almost as if the hand of God came in that last moment and pulled him out. Right, so you hear this psalm of thanksgiving to God that in that last moment, right, and how many of us can think about experiences in our lives where we thought everything was just we thought we were going to drown, we thought we were going under, And then Hashem pulled us out from those metaphorical tempestuous waters, right? And you get the sense of the Mishorer here taking a deep breath when he thought that the possibility to ever breathe again had been completely taken from him, right? If we move a tiny bit further down, I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. I'm going to skip through what I'm going to do. I'm not going to read through all of these inside because I don't want to run out of time. I know you guys are on a tight schedule, but you have all these on your source sheet, so feel free to follow along. I'm just not going to read them inside. But one of the things that's amazing about metaphor really is that the concrete experience can be mapped onto all different ideas. And so in Mizmor Mem Vav there, for example, you have the Mishorer talking about all those scary waters outside, but how he feels safe and content because he's within the walls of Jerusalem, right? And when I read this with Mizmor all the time, I don't know how many people on this Zoom are living in Israel or have been to Israel, right? That sense of tranquility that you can experience being in Yerushalayim or wherever you are, knowing that literally a few kilometers away, there's absolute chaos just beyond the walls where you are, is something that's so powerful. And so the water of there's a bubbling brook inside Jerusalem sustaining him, but then outside are the tempestuous waters. And so the juxtaposition of those two realities, water on the outside is chaos, water on the inside is a source of joy, right? Outside it submerges and destroys, inside it quenches and it sustains. And so there's something really, really unbelievable again about how creative the artist, the Mishorer, is. In Parak Membet, you have, for example, the very famous metaphor where the Mishorer talks about the physical experience of thirst, of that need for water, to speak about his spiritual longing for Hashem, right? Ka'ayal ta'arog alafi kemayim, that sense of the same way we can't live without water. He's talking about searching, right? That search that I think so many of us experience at different points in our lives, where we're looking for God, where we're looking for spirituality, where it feels just beyond our reach and we're trying so hard to connect to it, right? And if you move a little bit further down, we have, for example, an extension of that metaphor, even but a little bit further. You have the image in Parak Chaf Bet. And again, please read these on your own time because I feel like I'm skipping over them and it's too beautiful to skip. But you have the image of the Mishorer crying and he's searching and he talks about how he's lying in a bed, sopping wet with his tears and how thoroughly exhausted he is by the search for God. Right? But then a little bit further in Parak Nun Vav, we have the sense that water is conveying hope, because the Mishorer tells us that the tears he's been crying haven't been falling on the ground. He creates this image, this metaphor of Hashem's drinking flask. And he says all the tears he's been crying have been falling into Hashem's drinking flask, right? Which is so much stronger. Again, we could say Hashem hears us, but this metaphor of Hashem listening, of not just listening to our prayers, but actually imbibing, right, our prayers, the sense of how raw and vulnerable the speaker is and how deeply he knows that he matters to Hashem, is something that I think is just so much more powerful than anything we see in ordinary language and ordinary literature. And then if you jump, I'll do the last one in Tehillim in Kuf Chaf Vav, you have the famous pasuk that I think so much of us, I think, really can speak about in different portions of our life. Hazorim b'dim'ah berina yiktzoru. Right? It's not just that he was crying and Hashem heard his cries, but that the tears, the very tears of the Mishorer, are the very things that are going to enable him. The tears that he cried fell onto the ground and enabled the ground to be fertilized and enabled everything from there to grow. So he sows with tears and he's going to reap with joy, right? And so again, here, all of these different images of water are transformed into water that irrigates the dry earth. His grief, it's turned into solace. And I think perhaps most profoundly, and I'll just end with this thought for me, metaphor is fascinating because, as I hope you got even the tiniest taste of, it can articulate really the entire gamut of experiences. But I think what's so beautiful and what Tehillim really ultimately is all about, the Mishorer is saying that sadness can be replaced by joy, but he's never denying human sadness, right? Instead, he uses that one source, water, and all the different experiences we have with water on the concrete, mundane level. Sometimes we're thirsty and sometimes we're crying and sometimes the waters are too strong, but he uses all those different concrete experiences to articulate this deep intimate emotions and direct them towards God. And so, I think Tehillim both acknowledges the complexity of the human experience, but beyond that, it gives us a language for it. It uses metaphor to provide us with words to implore God when we're feeling like the stresses of life are drowning us, or when personal anguish leaves us feeling lost, alone at sea. And it also gives us words at points in our lives when we're bursting with joy. And when gratitude, and we don't even know how to thank God. So Tehillim gives us words for that as well. So I hope, I gave you a tiny, tiny little bit image here of what Tehillim can do. But please, there are so many metaphors. Look for rocks and look for animals and look for trees and look for walls. Tehillim is bursting with metaphors, and the more we can see them, I think the more we can appreciate really the depth of the human experience and how the Mishorer allows us to connect through God through the depth of our emotions. So,
wow. I am blown away, and as I know, so many of us are, just reading the comments that people have been sending through. I want all of you to know that the source sheet that the Rabbanit was referring to, I'll make sure when I'm going to upload this onto our YouTube channel, I'll make sure to put in the description a link to get that source sheet so that you can look at it in further detail. So not to worry, in case some of you are not sure, you want to go over it. I can't thank you enough. What a refreshing view just of the concept of water. And I mean, I connected to so many of the things that you said, just in terms of also the concept of, hazorim, like this concept really is something that hit me very much, because I found, and I know I can't go into all this right now, I want to keep to our time, but so many of the hard experiences in my life, the moments where I really felt like I was drowning in a sea of troubles, became the source of some of the greatest things that I've built. This app, Abraham's Legacy, being one of them. It was in a time where my grandfather was on his deathbed. And I was connected to Tehillim, but I never connected as much as I did during those months from when he first fell and he broke his hip until, 6-7 months later when he passed. I was reading the book of Tehillim, the full book, every single day. And it was during that time that I had a dream about this app. But more than that, I had a connection to Tehillim in an incredible way, and saw how it was, in a sense, my life vest in a sea of troubles. It really kept me afloat when I felt like I couldn't continue to go on. So I really, really appreciate your words on so many levels. And I hope that you'll all stay on. Please, if you have questions to the Rabbanit, as soon as we do our Tehillim read, we're going to join in with the Rabbanit right now to read Tehillim through the Abraham's Legacy app. This means so much to me, especially today, because it's the yortzeit of my grandfather. So if you can all keep in mind Avraham ben Polin, because really none of this would have happened without him. This is all his zechut. I don't take any credit on this. This is all his zechut. So I want to thank you all. And then when we get back, you'll be able to ask the Rabbanit questions, and we'll do our raffle. Here we go. On behalf of Abraham's Legacy, we are excited to lead you in a Tehillim reading, where each and every one of us, from wherever we are in the world, can easily join in and complete a book of Tehillim in unison within minutes through a very special app called Abraham's Legacy, Tehillim Together, in memory of Avraham ben Polin. To be part of the global Tehillim read happening now, download Abraham's Legacy on your mobile device from the App Store, available for iOS and Android. You can also scan this QR code with your phone. To scan a QR code, simply open the camera on your phone and hold it up to this image. A link will appear on top, which you can click, and it will direct you to download the app. I'll give you all a moment to download the app. Sign in, and in a minute, we will all click on the Start Reading button on the main screen, and each of us will receive a different perek from the Sefer of Tehillim so that we can complete the book and add to the global count. In the top right corner, you can click the icon to switch your language if you like. You'll also be able to see in real time the amount of people reading and countries reading. Don't forget, you'll need to confirm that you've completed the chapter. Let's put a few minutes on the clock to read in unison so that we can unleash the power of our combined tefillah. Tizku l'mitzvot.
הקרבות עוד באוויר, עם עייף חובש פצעיו, יושב סופר ימיו, צעקות בושה בכל העיר, דור רוצה תשובה עכשיו, זכאי ולא חייב. בגוף עייף מכישלונות, בלב שבור לחתיכות, נחכה לך שתקבל פנינו. לך קראנו בלילות, ועוד נצעק ברחובות, רחם עלינו אבא, הושיענו, הושיענו. זמן עובר כולם ממהרים, דור מחיש את פעמיו, רוצה הכל עכשיו, שמש בשמיים אפורים, עם בארץ אבותיו, נלחם עוד על חייו. בגוף עייף מכישלונות, בלב שבור לחתיכות, נחכה לך שתקבל פנינו. בגוף עייף מכישלונות, בלב שבור לחתיכות, נחכה לך שתקבל פנינו. לך קראנו בלילות, ועוד נצעק ברחובות, רחם עלינו אבא, הושיענו, הושיענו. הגיע הזמן להתעורר, לעזוב הכל, להתגבר, לשוב הביתה, לא לחפש מקום אחר. הגיע הזמן להשתנות, גם אם פספסנו תחנות, אפשר לרדת, יש רכבת, חזרה לשכונות. הכל אפשר רק אם נרצה, המחפש תמיד מוצא, גם אם הוא נמצא שם הרחק בקצה. דלתות שמיים לא ננעלו, כשהבן קורא הצילו, אבא שבשמיים מגיע אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה, ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב אליו. הזמן להתחרט, אם כבר לברוח אז מאחת, אם כבר לקחת אז לקחת בשביל לתת. וזה הזמן להתקרב, לא לפחד מהכאב, ואם לתת אז כבר לתת מכל הלב. הכל אפשר רק אם נרצה, המחפש תמיד מוצא, גם אם הוא נמצא שם הרחק בקצה. דלתות שמיים לא ננעלו, כשהבן קורא הצילו, אבא שבשמיים מגיע אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה, ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב אליו. שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה, ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב אליו. להתגבר לשוב הביתה.
Finish reading the perek that you're on. I'll tell you, for me, this was a extremely emotional read. Out of all of the parakim in Tehillim, one of the ones I received was the one with my grandfather's name on it, which is Perek Kuf Yud Chet. Because for those of you that have joined from the very beginning, I told the story of how when my grandfather was, when they thought that that was it, he was on his way out. And I stood with my Tehillim book in my hand, reading through the entire book, and I get to Perek Kuf Yud Chet, Perek Pasuk Yud Zayin, and it says, Lo amut ki achyeh v'asaper ma'aseyah. And I stayed on that pasuk. I must have read that pasuk a couple of hundred times. I said, Hashem, I'm not leaving this pasuk until it becomes true. Lo amut. No, not tonight. He's not going to die. Ki achyeh. Please allow him to live. V'asaper ma'aseyah. And I promise you, Hashem, I'm going to make it my goal, my job, to make sure that I help to spread the message of Tehillim and the incredible miracles that come about. And there was definitely a miracle that happened that night, and we had it for several more months. There's more to the story, but I won't go into that right now. But I want to thank all of you so much. I can't tell you how much it means to me that we're here each and every night. Rabbanit, I want to thank you so much for your words that you shared with us. Absolutely incredible. And, it's the concept of mayim that you were talking about. I realized, this past week's Parashat Bereshit, as I was reading the parasha this weekend, I said, wow, so the first thing basically, when there was nothingness, but then Hashem collected the waters, really it was water. It was just nothingness, and there was just water everywhere. Because obviously he didn't say he created the waters were there. He said, let's gather the waters. That means the first thing that was here was mine. I just found that to be such an amazing connection with everything that you were sharing. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask the Rabbanit, feel free. Right now is your opportunity to either type it, or you can feel free to unmute yourself, and she'll be more than happy to respond. I'm going to also leave my email address here, info@abrahamslegacy.com, in case you have any questions that you come up with afterwards and you want to ask, as well as my WhatsApp number. Feel free to reach out. Does somebody have something to say?
Oh, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Tali Katz in Florida. And I just want to say that I began doing a Tehillim group that we originally met at the pandemic. We were meeting 6 days a week, and now we meet 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I have written nigunim to many of the pasukim that we say. And when you're talking about Mayim, one of the first songs after my first experience of the mikveh, I wrote a melody called Mayim Chayim that has been published now. So my world, and I've given a talk on the power of Tehillim. So my world is also world of Tehillim, and I'm so happy to be here.
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. And what I'd love to ask is if you'll send me that in an email, I'd be more than happy to share it with the women that are on, as I'm sure that they would love to hear that. I think that that's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing. You can email me, and I'll make sure that I send it out in the emails that go out, the daily reminders. At the end of this week, I'll make sure that I send it out for those that are interested in listening and in learning more.
Okay, and I just want to see can you just say the email, because it's not there?
Yeah, it's info@abrahamslegacy.com.
Okay.
One person also asked a question, Rabbanit, if you teach online classes.
Yes, I do. Matan has, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Matan, but it's one of the most amazing learning programs. Yes. Maybe I'm biased, but the most amazing learning program.
I take courses there. I can.
Yes. Okay. So certainly in Israel, probably the world. But yes, I teach there, and they're offering now, because of COVID, they started on Zoom last year. So everything is going to be hybrid. So you can come in or join online, and it's really, there's amazing, amazing courses there. So for sure. Thank you. I would love to see you guys and get to know you. So
100%. Somebody asked, is it in English?
Yes, always in English.
Excellent.
But I have Hebrew courses too, if you're interested, but mine are in English.
Amazing. I want to thank you so much, Rabbanit, for joining us. And we're going to do the raffle. Okay, so stick around. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do our raffle. The raffle, of course, is for our Netillah cup. I'll pull it up over here just so that you could see it. So this is the cup that you'll win. And I'm going to spin our big wheel. Here we go. And I'll send you an email for whoever it is that wins. And the email is for you too at Gmail. Congratulations on winning the Netillah Cup. I'll send you an email so you can send me your address. I just want to make a quick mention. I hope that you guys are going to join us the rest of this week. We have an incredible program for you. Tomorrow, we are going to be with Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky as she talks about Tehillim to find a soulmate. So if you know any friends of yours that you think would really enjoy this talk, feel free to let them know. The rest of the agenda can be found on the website. Don't forget, the October 17th event is coming up. Our Rachel Imenu Shabbat Project event is going to be taking place over a 3-hour period from 4:15 p.m. Israel time on October 17th. We're going to be having a live stream from the kever of Rachel. We're also going to be having incredible speakers, including Rebbetzin Yemima Mizrahi, and many, many others that you'll be able to see directly on our website within this week. In addition to that, one last thing to mention, part of the Shabbat project, one of our performers on the October 17th event, her name is Jeslia. She is incredible, and she's working with an incredible choreographer named Shaked Sabag and their dance company that they've created a dance to a song titled Shabbat Kodesh. And this, again, is in honor of the Shabbat project. And what we've done, and I just sent this out in an email on Friday, I will be sending out another email just about this if you're interested. So check your promotion folder or your spam folder, because sometimes they can go there. And basically what she's done is she created a song called Shabbat Kodesh and a dance that goes to it. And we're asking women from around the world to join in, learn the choreography, and submit their video doing the dance. All the details are right there in the email. And then we're going to be putting together a global video collaboration that we are going to share live on the October 17th event in honor and tribute of Rachel Imenu, and of course, to honor Shabbat Kodesh. So we hope that you take part. Naomi actually just put a link right now to a YouTube video where I explain all this and where you can see the dance. So if you go to the Abraham's Legacy YouTube channel, you will already be able to see the instructions. You'll be able to see the dance, and you can share it with others. All the instructions are written there. And once you record it, you can send your video directly to Jeslia, and her email address is also on that YouTube video. So I hope that you'll all take part. I want to thank you once again for being on, for joining, especially this evening. It means so much to me, Rabbanit. Thank you for your words and really uplifting us. I'll make sure that I'll get the source sheet from you, and not to worry, if you're looking for the source sheet, it will be on the YouTube channel. Thank you all, guys. And remember, Tehillim, Tefillah, it changes us. And when we change, our world changes. Have a great night.